Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and today I have another emergency card kit for you. We're going to make this adorable fun fold card that's pretty quick and easy. If you're new to the channel, an emergency card is one where we make the card ahead but we don't put the sentiment on it. Each card has a space for a 1 3/4 inch circle sentiment that you can add to the card later after you know what occasion you need a card for. I come out on the first of the month with a set of emergency sentiments. So we've done birthday, Valentine's, coworkers, sympathy, get well. So this is a follow-up get well. And often in the middle of the month, I'll either come out with a second set of sentiments or a fun fold or an extra something to kind of go with this emergency card series. This set is really, really special. I had a subscriber reach out to me right before March started. I had already finished the Get Well video and had it uploaded to YouTube, and she sent me a bunch of Get Well sentiments. I love when you guys give me ideas for what kind of sentiments are most useful to you. So if you have ideas for sentiments, please put them in the comments below. I have a few ideas for April, but if you guys are requesting something else, I can absolutely switch that up. So these are from Dotty. This is Dotty's Get Well sentiments. And she said she has notebooks full of sentiments and sentiment ideas, and they're quirky and they're funny and they're thoughtful, and I just adored them. And so I wanted to come out with a follow-up. We sort of chatted back and forth, and she thought that was a good idea. I like this one that says, hope you have a feel better day. Sometimes when our friends are ill, they're not going to get better. But we can certainly hope that they feel better, that they have a good day. Dotty's Australian. And so this one says, chemo has taken my hair, but not my sense of humor. And we've spelled it both ways, both American spelling and Australian spelling. Heard you're not feeling well, dibs on your organs. She was like, that's if somebody has just like a cold or something. And I was like, yes, I would totally send that to my mother-in-law. We were working with 8 or 9 sentiments, so there's duplicates on here, but sometimes that's really useful for me. I find you know, at some point I have so many pages of sentiments kind of floating around my office that can be helpful. So there are 2 pages in the free printable. It's 100% free for subscribers. If you have not subscribed yet, all you have to do is click the subscribe button, and then later in this video I will tell you how to go about downloading this. The first page has a circle around it. I like to use my EK Success 1 3/4 inch punch, and I just flip it over and wiggle it around till I can't see the circle around it, and I know that I have it centered. But if you want to cut it out in a different size or a different shape, page 2 will always offer the same sentiments without the circle. And then page 3 is our card template. It's a cutting guide that tells you how to cut and fold and put everything together. And if you print it at 100%, this is going to be the exact same size as your card. So if you don't like measuring, you've got a little bit of help there too. There are some additional instructions for directional patterns or ways to step up the card, but we'll cover a lot of that in the video. To get started on our card, this is page 3 from the printable, and I have printed mine out at 100%. So this is the exact same size as our card will be. I am starting with a card base that measures 4 1/4 by 11 inches, and then I scored that at 5 1/2. We'll worry about that diagonal cut in just a minute. Next, I have a piece of patterned paper that I have cut to 3 3/4 inch by 5 inches. Again, we're going to cut this on the diagonal. We'll do that in just a minute. And I have a white matte layer for the inside to write our greeting that is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. We will also worry about this sentiment circle in just a little bit. To prep my card base, I want to cut just the top layer from this crease down to this corner. I find this easier to do with a guillotine cutter so I don't mangle any of my corners. So I am just going to line this up on both corners. I tend to get one in place and then I just kind of rotate and I will cut. Okay. So here's my card base. If you were using a paper cutter that has like a sliding blade, I recommend lining it up. Okay, so it's right in your track, and then drop the blade into the middle and cut up and then cut down so you're not hitting a corner and bending anything. Next, I am going to take my patterned paper and I am going to cut it also at a diagonal, just make sure that you're cutting the same diagonal, right? Earlier I cut one this way, which doesn't match the sketch, and that's fine, but then you have to cut your pattern paper that way as well. All right, so I'm gonna line the one corner up, and then I will just pivot until both corners are right on the edge of my trimmer, and I will cut that in half. When I go to put this together, there's very obviously one that fits and one that, would fit on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and begin by attaching my white layer for the inside. I think it helps me to line up this pattern piece on the top. And I find that making sure my margins are the same on these three sides, not so much on the top, is more important because that's where your eye is drawn, right? So I have kind of a short margin on the top, but no one sees that. We want to make sure that when they're looking at the front of the card, that looks pretty good, okay? So next I will add my pattern paper. I'm going to be careful to get all the way into the corners on this. I don't want that peeling up. And again, you know me, I like my wet glue. I think it's easier to get everything kind of lined up where I want it. Because of the size we started with, this will leave that same 1/8 of an inch margin on all three sides. Okay. So 2 cuts and already we have a card coming together really nicely. From this leftover piece, I am going to take my 2-inch circle punch. This is the EK Success Punch. And I am just going to open that up and I am going to punch that out of my leftover cardstock. Obviously, I don't want to glue my card closed. And I've got options. I'm going to set this piece to the side, but I can decide kind of where I want it to sit on here. The sketch has it in the middle, right? And that would be lovely. But I don't want to cover up a ton of my cats, and I have bonus pieces. These are the cardstock die cut ephemera pieces that you can buy that coordinates with this pattern paper, and there's all these extra little cats. So I thought maybe I would plan to put one in the corner, and I just want to make sure that whichever one I'm picking, like if I chose this one, which nearly fits, right? Well, then I might stick this down here. I'm going to move it depending on if I'm putting anything right here. If I'm not going to put anything there, I might even want a larger circle or a different set of like layered die cuts to take up more of that space. On my dog paper, this is a 2-inch circle, the pink one, and then I have another layer, right, just to give me a little extra something. So let me see. I think I like this napping cat, actually. Like maybe I'll stick that right down at the bottom. I'm just going to glue that on, and I'm trying to get all of the little pieces that might be hanging out. I think I'm okay with that mouse tail hanging over the bottom of my white cardstock. And then I can decide, you know what, I think that center is okay. I'm going to put my finger at the top and the bottom of where this diagonal cut is, and that's where I can put my glue because I don't want to glue my card shut. And I'm going to stick that right in the middle. Okay. And that's it. That's card number 1. And so I'm going to grab one of our sentiments. This is an old one, right? And the card will look like that when I go to put something on there. Because this was a directional pattern, I can't just make a second card using this same top folding card base. So instead, I am going to make one more card with you, but I'm going to start with a side folding card base. All right, so down in the directional patterns section, it's going to remind you of this. I'm going to grab my trimmer, and I want to make sure that I am making that cut using the same diagonal. Otherwise, it's not going to fit. So I'm lining up the top and then the bottom corner. So right at that crease. All right. I am going to glue my white piece to the inside to get started, just to help me line everything else up as we're moving along. Okay, and again, this time, the margins at the top are what we're going to see first. That's where our eye will be drawn. That's the most important part. Okay, and then I can add my pattern paper here. So I'm going to make sure I get all the way to the corners. And I will add that. Okay, again, I'm just wiggling it around until the margins are even. For me, making sure the margin is even along this diagonal line is more important than like down in these corners. We'll notice the center of the card a little more. For this one, do I want to add another cat? Probably. I probably want to add a cat. Little glue on the back, make sure I get all these pieces that are kind of hanging out. I am notorious for catching parts of my card on the envelope as I'm going to put it in. I'm usually in a rush, right? I'm trying to make sure I have a card. So that overhangs the white area quite a bit, but my cardstock's fairly heavyweight, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I think we'll be okay. I like the idea that it looks like the cat is kind of walking on the top of that sentiment. Okay. And there's our second card. These are super quick and easy. Now that we have our cat cards, I wanted to show you a few other variations. So I also made these as puppy dog cards. Look how cute they are. I didn't have the ephemera for these, so I wanted to use a slightly larger circle. So this is my 2-inch circle punch in the pink, but then behind that, I just have another layer. I've used my Waffle Flower additional circles dies, and there's one that will cut this at 2 1/8 of an inch. You could certainly just use like a 2 1/4 inch. That way I felt like it wasn't leaving quite so much white space here, and I put it down and up in the corners, so I wasn't covering up so many of the dogs. I mean, that's the point, right? This really cute paper. So that's one way I kind of switched it up, dressed it up. Then I made a couple of bee cards. This one, I've used some larger hexagons. If I put my sentiment on there, you can see there's quite a bit of space there. It really creates a big focal point. And then I've used some gray for where I will write my sentiment, tie everything together a little bit more. Any light colored cardstock would work for that. The hexagons come from scrapbook.com. These are the nested hexagons. As you can tell, these are well loved. They're, as far as die sets go, nesting die sets, these are pretty affordable. The largest one is 6 inches, which is huge. So those are a lot of fun. This is a slightly smaller version. So this yellow and this black hexagon are the same size, but I went one size smaller on the little one. And I like how it creates just this perfect little nest for our sentiment. And then these two cards, I have used here just the 2-inch circle punch. And then I've got a bunch of leftover ephemera from a card kit. I always keep that. I have a little bin with all my extra ephemera. The Spellbinders Quick and Easy card kit this month was my all-time favorite card kit I've ever had. So all those are from that kit. And then here, I just stamped a little guy in the corner. And he's so cute. This is from Pink and Maine. I got that, I think it's on clearance. It was like the stamp and die bundled together for $16. And so I stamped and colored him. I really been enjoying coloring lately. And this is another one of my most used die sets. It's the Fluted Classics Circle Dies from Spellbinders. And it's got 3 different sizes where it will cut the outside, all of that fluting, right? That sort of pierced pattern. And then there's also a die that will cut the inside. Of note, one of these circle dies is 1 3/4 of an inch. And so you could cut all of this from that set, right? And I love it a lot. I haven't shown it to you, I think, in an emergency card yet, but I use that set all the time. If you are interested in downloading the free printable that has our card template and measurements and both sets of our sentiments, all I ask is that you subscribe to my channel So click the subscribe button and then go down to the very bottom of the description box. You might have to click more or show more depending on your device. And you will find a link at the very bottom of the description where you can click the link and download this. Please also click the bell button to be notified of the next time we have an emergency card kit. I'm thrilled to have you, and I will see you next time.